If we talk about your history with driving commercially, is it just limited to the driving the hauling of mobile homes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've never driven a traditional 18 wheeler.
No, sir.
Okay. Pretty much just the last couple years, and it's for this particular purpose.
Yes, sir.
All right. Since you've been doing this for a little over 2 years, other than this incident in November of 14 that resulted in Miss Fields' death, have you ever had occasions where either the truck you're driving or maybe the one with you're driving in tandem with it, where it's lost a wheel from the trailer underneath the mobile home?
I have seen it happen before.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How many times in your career?
Less than 5.
Okay.
Don't know an exact number. I haven't been keeping count.
That's fine. Good estimates between 2 and 5?
Yes, sir. Good estimate.
Okay.
I'm saying that no matter the manufacturer, these style axles are prone to run down the road and lose a tire.
Okay.
The way that the tire is fastened to the axle is not necessarily like a automobile fastens their tires and wheels to the car. So the style or the type of bolt pattern that holds the wheel and tire on is, I think, the leading cause of why they come off.
Okay. So this was the second tire or wheel issue on your trailer that y'all had dealt with just in this one trip from Fort Worth.
Yes, sir.
One, you had a flat, and then you had the loss.
Right.
Did you ever express concern to anybody, ever, about the danger created by the way that these trailers were being made?
No, sir.
Okay. You heard your dad say earlier that he had told Vicky that he had concerns about the safety.
Yes, sir. I did hear him say that.
Right. Had you ever heard him voice concerns to you or to anybody else about that stuff before this morning?
We have had discussions between us about how things could be safer,
Okay.
but that's above my pay grade.
But you and he previously, I mean, that subject had come up.
Yes, sir. It comes up quite often.
Okay. And y'all are aware, you were aware before this incident that there were issues with these wheels and with these trailers and that there were potential hazards.
You become, whenever you become part of any field of work or any line of a career, you begin to understand where the need for improvement is. Yes, sir.
Y'all travel with extra wheels?
Yes.
How many per rig?
Depends.
How many did you have that day?
5 spares.
Okay. And you say spares, and what that brings me to, like, I have my little car out here, and I have a spare. And it's one of those, my car looks ridiculous when I put it on because I got 4 nice tires and the spare, and it'll get me around town till I can get the bad tire fixed, but you don't want to travel too far on it. So you understand that, with passenger cars, a lot of times the spare is a smaller, temporary type of a fix.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The wheels that you're carrying as your spares, are they pretty much identical to the ones that are already on the trailer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they're not meant as a temporary fix, they're just meant as a fix.
Yes, sir.
Who provided you those wheels?
My dad.
Do you know if Daniel Brown had any of those wheels?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many he was carrying that day?
No, sir, not exactly.
Okay. Presumably in the same ballpark as you.
Yes, sir.
Who provided those to him, if you know?
My dad.
Because it happens, losing these wheels or getting flats on these wheels happens frequently enough that y'all need to be prepared to deal with it when it does.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the most you've ever had to, what's the most spares you've ever utilized during one move?
There have been some extremely long loads that have ate up 17 spares in one trip. but those are all the way to the state line, you know what I'm saying? Not just 200 miles.
Sure. And so these, so that's happened to you 17 in one trip.
Yes,
Okay. Now, are those for flats or?
flats, yes.
Okay. So when you get a flat on these tires, you can't just pump them up. You got to trade them out.
Right.
Okay. So when you had the flat earlier in this trip, you had already utilized one of your spares.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you ever been in a spot where you didn't have enough spares?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that. How many? Does that happen a lot?
No. We had a big house going out to Odessa, and I mean, it was just way too big of a house for the amount of axles that were on it, and it seemed like every 10 or 15 miles, one of us, me or my dad, would have a flat. And we got all the way out there about 60 miles from delivery, and we had run out of tires. So what we did was found a big area to get it off the road, stage it, and let it sit there for a week until we could get back with some more tires.
Okay. So fair to say then, having tire issues while moving these homes is a frequent occurrence.
Yes, sir.
You would expect on any move from Fort Worth to San Antonio to have at least one issue along the way.
It's not uncommon, no, sir.
Okay. Does it necessarily happen every time?
No, sir.
More often than not?
Yes, sir.
But mostly those are flats.
Yes, sir.
It's the rarer exception, or rarer occurrence rather, where you would have, what would you call that? Removal, falling off?
The tire just run off the rim.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it is more of a rare occasion.
So yeah, clarify that for me. Is it the tire just coming off, or is it the wheel with the casing?
You don't have any pictures of the actual axles and tires and the way the style that they use on a mobile home?
Not in front of me, no, sir.
Okay, they're not exactly the same as, like I explained earlier, as a motor vehicle, okay? There is no center of a mobile home tire, okay? It's got an outer metal ring that holds the tire on, and then there's no center. There's no bolt holes. There's no nothing. It sits up on the axle on a drum. It's got 5 bolts that wedge it on. Now, if for any reason any of those 5 are not exactly tightened down evenly, well, then that could cause the tire to run out of true or out of square or out of straight or whatever. And that could cause vibration. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And potentially that could lead to a problem like this. And what happens is the lugs either loosen up going down the road, or they break, or I don't know exactly what caused this one, but they just run out of themselves. The rim and everything just pops off the hub, and the axle keeps going one way, the tire goes another.
Okay. And you're able to pop one back on pretty easily.
Yeah, you got to jack it back up, put new bolts in it if they're bent or whatever, and a new tire on.
Okay. Have you ever had an occasion where you had a tire issue and you were unable to fix it on the side of the road?
Normally in that case, the whole axle would be bad.
Okay. Have you had that happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What do you do in that occasion?
You find a safe place to change the whole axle.
Okay. And you have the capability to do that?
Yes, sir.
Do you have spare axles?
Yes, sir.
How many would you carry on a job like this?
One. I always have one on my truck.
Okay. Again, that's even a more rare occurrence than
Yes,
losing one of these wheels.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any other items that you typically carry in anticipation of having some sort of mechanical failure, other than wheels and one axle?
No, sir. Just hardware, bolts and keepers and stuff.
And jack and all that?
Yeah, jack.
Okay. Have you ever received any training or instruction from the home builders, like Palm Harbor, like Cavco, as far as telling you what to do when something goes wrong with one of their trailers or tires?
No, sir.
But you've never received any instruction on how far it's okay to travel when you lose a wheel or when you have
No,
flat?
sir.
Right. You ever asked anybody that?
No, sir.
We know that these wheels and tires are stressed pretty well from the get-go, and if you take one away, it only gets worse.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier that you had had discussions with your dad about safety concerns as to the way that these trailers are constructed under the homes, correct?
The common point of the conversation is how can we make our job easier and safer for the motoring public.
Okay. And again, I understand you guys aren't in the business of building trailers,
Right.
but you deal with them as a matter of course in your job.
Yes, sir.
But you had discussions with your dad. Just everybody, with work folks, you talk about work issues, right?
That's right.
So that's one issue that had come up on occasion when y'all were talking.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Had you ever talked to your dad about the idea of, this is just a hazard. Maybe we should stop hauling homes that have these crappy trailers? Had that ever been part of the discussion?
No, sir.
Could have been, right?
I guess so. Yes, sir.
Okay. We talked about the other manufacturers, whether it's Cavco or Palm Harbor, Fleetwood, Legacy, Champion. Was it True Homes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can't read my own chicken scratch. Are the trailers that are used between these different companies pretty similar,
Yes, sir.
identical?
No, sir.
They each build their own,
Yes, sir.
so they're a little bit different.
Yes, sir.
Are there any of these companies' trailers that you would say are better than any others?
No, sir.
Okay. All pretty equal as far as quality.
Yes, sir.
If you're hauling any of these companies' homes for any distance, you're going to come with spare tires and wheels
Absolutely.
because that's just part of the job.
Yes, sir.
You have to anticipate that you're going to have wheel issues.
Yes, sir.
And just to be clear, amongst the different manufacturers that you haul with, the trailers are all made a little different from manufacturer to manufacturer, but basically of equal quality.
Yes, sir.
And you would anticipate having equal problems along the way from any of those manufacturers with any of their trailers.
Yes, sir.
And you've not received any instruction or training from any manufacturer as to strategies or how to be safe when one of the tires falls off or goes flat, correct?
No, sir.
So my statement's correct?
Yes, sir.